He owns and operates the Pack a Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack a Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know I was gonna be the oldest in the receiver. I'm getting old, man. Year 7 is getting crazy. But I think just being able to get there and the work that was put in to get there, I think just being able to relay that to the guys, and especially when times get hard, or you're not feeling so well, or you're hurting or whatever, just kind of being had that experience to let them know, like, hey, it's this part of it. This is where things happen. This is where you build that, and this is gonna get better in the long run. And if it's hard now, it's easier later on. So just be able to have that experience and actually have gotten to the end game and having to win it. I think that goes a long way, especially for the younger guys to see that. And I'm glad I can give that experience to them and let them know like what it took and what it's going to take.
Good morning, Milwaukee. Happy Friday. Welcome in to the Pack a Day radio show. My name is Andy Herman. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. That was McCole Hardman, courtesy of Matt Schneidman. We're going to talk about Hardman here in just a moment, what he can potentially bring to the Green Bay Packers this upcoming season. Also, we've got Dan Kotnik coming up at 8:20 a.m. today. We're going to go through the NFC and look at where the Packers rank in comparison to the rest of their NFC brethren. Plus, as always, would love for you to join the show. Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. We are here for you guys and anything that you guys want to go over through the course of today's show. Before we jump into any Packers conversation, Tommy, the Milwaukee Bucks made maybe the greatest draft choice of all time. The one, the only, Bogey Markovich, your newest Milwaukee Buck, pick 47 overall, 17th in the second round. How are we feeling?
I went and did you immediately go and watch his highlights, or some popped up on your feed or something, at least along those lines?
I've been following Bogey Markovich since he was 5 years old, and in his AAU days and everything. No, Bogey Markovich has been, just on my list of top prospects for years now, Tommy.
I did see the Bucks looked really excited to draft him. When I went and looked at some of his work in Serbia, I wasn't necessarily impressed with his offensive side. I was very impressed with his passing. I thought that was going to be great. And they took a 6'11", skinny guy, which they always love to do. They're going to add some weight onto him. Hopefully it turns into a pretty awesome second-round pick.
We'll see. I don't have any strong, hard takes on Bogey Markovich, excuse me. We'll see what he ultimately ends up becoming. This is a sort of long-term upside sort of play.
Right.
I don't know that it currently fits with what Milwaukee is probably needing / trying to do at the moment. We'll see if he ends up getting stashed overseas for a year. I think probably the best way to go about this is to not get too hyped up or disappointed about the 47th pick in an NBA draft one way or the other. That's not ever going to probably be the answer. But Milwaukee has had some success with second round picks way back, whether it's been a Michael Redd or something like that. You can find good players in this round every once in a while. And it just felt like Milwaukee maybe needed to take a little bit more of a swing on a player that could even possibly help them here in the moment. There were also quite a few move up opportunities that other teams took advantage of, some even by just moving cash to get up earlier in the second round. Maybe again, getting a player that could have had a little bit better opportunity to help Milwaukee in this upcoming season. They decided to stick and stay. There's not going to be anything that probably makes or breaks the Bucks at this point in the draft, period, end of story. I just maybe would have liked to have seen them be a little bit more aggressive with a player that could, again, remotely help them in 2025.
Yeah, I think they were looking for just some sort of mobile big, as they tried. They don't have that on the Milwaukee Bucks, at least from someone who is 6'10" or higher and can move around and be fast on the court. So that's why they go with Bogo. I do want to say this as well, Andy. If there's any other reason why you should be on Team Wisconsin versus Team Marquette, even the most exciting thing for Marquette has to go to the Indiana Pacers.
See, I looked at it the opposite way. I tried after the Pacers had this pretty epic run, won me over a little bit during the playoffs. I now have a reason that I can actually buy into the Pacers just a little bit with them taking Cam Jones. But yes, Cam Jones, Tanjay both get drafted yesterday as well, which is awesome for both players. One Badger, one Golden Eagle taken in the second round of the draft. Were you surprised that Jones went ahead of Tanjay, or was that what you were kind of expecting?
No, I think I was expecting that. Tanjay's really old as far as prospect standards go. Right, I think he was a 6th year at Wisconsin when he was in the graduate program.
Super senior, yeah.
Right. So I understand why you are hesitant to take that really much higher than he did go. And but the season he put up, I mean, you might as well take a flyer on the guy, right? After spending as much time and then the success he had in the Big Ten on the basketball side of things. I knew they would both go. I thought Cam Jones had a chance to come in late first round just because he was a little younger, and he's also extremely talented. I think his game translates a little bit better to the NBA than John Tanji's game does. But ultimately, they both go on day 2. And now, the Indiana Pacers have Cam Jones, and I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's a conflicting feeling. I totally get that. Tanji feels like the ultimate Utah Jazz. It just feels like he was meant to be on the Utah Jazz. I don't know why. I can't define it in any way, shape, or form. It just feels like that is the right fit for some reason. So, no, great landing. Well, solid landing spot for Tanjay. We'll see what Cam Jones in the Indiana Pacers feels like. Of course, it would have been more fun if he went somewhere else. Also, the Bucks in with a two-way contract, getting Mark Sears from Alabama. I thought that was a really interesting transaction for them. As a two-way deal, makes a ton of sense. Undersized, of course, but a really fun playmaker. If nothing else, makes the Oshkosh Herd, I think, a very exciting team this upcoming season.
Yeah, I also did like that move, Andy. A lot of the high school group chat was blowing up for it. Everyone watching Alabama in the tournament this past year. The Jalen Brunson comparisons all over now as well too. I'm okay with the move again too. The Bucks are looking to get better and trying to get younger. So why not? Even when they didn't have all the picks to get younger, they're still making an effort to get younger. So yeah, I'm cool with Sears as well being a part of the team.
How do you feel just in general before we move on to some Packers conversation here? It's very early in the process. We're on June 27th. Free agency hasn't even started yet, and we know that Milwaukee's hands are very tied. They had a mid-second round pick. They had no first-round pick. They have really not much to do from a salary cap space standpoint. They've got a couple players that they're probably going to look to re-sign here. We'll see what happens with guys like Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent, Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez. But this is a very important offseason for Milwaukee. Thus far, again, an international second-round pick that might be stashed overseas, a two-way player in Sears, no trades, no major movement, and Doc Rivers is still the head coach. How are we grading this offseason, even though it's early so far for Milwaukee?
I guess on a curved scale, Andy, if Giannis is still a Buck, they have to be passing, right?
Okay.
That seems like right now on Get Up currently, it is what is Giannis Antetokounmpo's future with the Bucks. After he has said multiple times now this offseason, Doc Rivers has said this offseason, he's not going anywhere. John Horst has said he's not going anywhere. And they continue to push this narrative. And then yesterday, the Denver Nuggets president floats a trade out there with Jokic, and the headline is, they would never trade Jokic. They would never trade him. No, that's just, he was talking out his you-know-what. But, what? There's no winning at all with the Milwaukee Bucks in the offseason, it feels like, unless Giannis Antetokounmpo stays a Milwaukee Buck. And if he stays a Milwaukee Buck, you got to give him, just from the national media slander, maybe a B minus, I guess, at that point. So any other additional players from there can only bring the grade up or go down from there.
Yeah, it's a constant. It's been this way since he got good, basically.
Yep.
Like, when is he going to leave Milwaukee? And it just is a narrative that has never quit, despite him being insanely loyal up until this point. I understand why this could be a conversation, once in off season or something. Like if it came up, what if Giannis left, or what trade options would be out there for Giannis? it's a fun conversation to have regardless. Like fake trades in the NBA with superstars are fun to have and fun to think about. And superstar trades in the NBA happen kind of a lot. I understand it. But this incessant need to constantly talk about Giannis leaving Milwaukee for basically like a decade now, it feels like. It's not quite that long, but like for probably 7 years now, it's really remarkable, especially when you consider that he's still a Milwaukee Buck and there hasn't been any mention of anything about either the Bucks wanting or needing to trade him or Giannis wanting to trade or needing to trade. It's really remarkable how the narrative still takes over.
We need St. Bonaventure to have a terrible season in college hoops this year, Andy, and then Woj gets fired and then he comes back to ESPN. That's the goal.
I love Woj. I understand the Shams distaste from some people. I don't mind Shams, and I get some of the time like these people are just trying to they're doing their job, right? Of A, breaking news, and B, trying to, get topics a little bit more, especially on like draft day and things like that, just strumming up some interest and seeing what could potentially be out there. We've seen it from Schefter. We've seen it from Rappaport. We've seen it from Shams. We even saw it from time to time from Woj. But yes, I do miss Woj quite a bit. And everyone loved a good Woj bomb. And we're certainly missing out on that. But I get it. And I understand why people maybe aren't the biggest fan, especially because he does seem to be one of the biggest, what's happening with Giannis when there's really nothing going on with Giannis, newsmakers out there. So I get it, but I digress. We have a lot of Packers stuff still to discuss. Bucks we'll talk about if there's any major trade. Once Giannis gets traded, Tommy, we'll definitely break the news here on the Pack-A-Day radio show and go over it. But no, I think as of right now, it certainly feels like
we got a year at least before any more stories, I think.
Yeah, unless the season starts terribly and the trade deadline move would potentially happen, and the season just starts and it goes again as horribly as you could possibly imagine. Maybe something could happen at the deadline, but I think you're right. I think the more likely scenario is next offseason at the probable earliest. All right, let's talk some Green Bay Packers here in the Pack-A-Day radio show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We recently had the opportunity to take a deeper dive into Mecole Hardman, who I think is a very interesting player on this team. And I want to be careful. I talked about this, I think, a little bit the other day, but Mecole Hardman, if you look at where he's been at over the course of, let me just ask you this, Tommy. If I told you that there was a player in the NFL who had 27 catches for 214 yards and no touchdowns, I think we talked about this, right? Not super enticing as a player, right?
No, not at all.
No, and that is not Mecole Hardman's stats from this past year. That is Mecole Hardman's stats over the last 3 seasons combined. 27 catches, 214 yards, no touchdowns. Now, he did have 6 rushes for 65 yards and a touchdown, including 5 for 62 and a touchdown this past year, but that still doesn't improve the overall statistics all that much. So I get that there is some level of excitement with Mecole Hardman because he's really fast. He's a Super Bowl champion, was a hero in a Super Bowl, brings some punt return ability, some gadget ability. There's a lot of things to like about Mecole Hardman, but I do think we have sometimes a little bit of a tendency to, over exaggerate the potential influence that a player like Mecole Hardman can have on the roster. But I do still think, even with that in mind, even knowing that he hasn't had this unbelievable last few seasons, even though he is more of a back of the roster player, even though we know that he's not even guaranteed to make the 53-man roster, I do think there are some really fun things about Mecole Hardman that he could potentially bring to this offense. And at minicamp, we saw that firsthand. In the second day of minicamp, at the very end of practice, in the 2-minute drill for the number 3 offense, Mecole Hardman's out there, which, by the way, should be noteworthy that he's still out there with the number 3s, but he's out there with the number 3. Sean Clifford gets the snap off with 1 second left. They're at about the 20-yard line. He scrambles back to about the 25 or 30-yard line, throws a mini Hail Mary up, and who else goes up and gets it but Mecole Hardman, of all people. And not only that, goes up and gets it with a one-handed catch to tie, in that scenario, tie the game at the very end. Awesome play by Mecole Hardman. Comes back the next day. Actually, I think it was on day 1. And then on day 2, you get him playing with the 1s in the 2-minute drill, and it's a 4th and 20 on the play. And they decide, hey, we're going long to Mecole Hardman. He beats Gregory Jr. on the outside. Again, Gregory Jr., so take it for whatever it's worth. but he ends up with a 74-yard game-winning touchdown pass on the final play on a 4th and 20 and just completely blows right by Gregory Jr. and shows off that 4.2 40 speed in a pretty significant way, and has the play of the day, probably the play of training camp, on a 74-yard pass and catch from Jordan Love to Mecole Hardman. So in just a very small sample size, we saw exactly what Mecole Hardman is capable of, including kind of being a little bit more of a veteran voice in that locker room. He is, as we heard on that audio from Matt Schneidman, the oldest wide receiver in that room. And I think having that veteran in that room can always be a little bit important, especially as you have to navigate this upcoming season where there are a ton of mouths to feed in that offense. And we already saw a little bit of angst and frustration from Romeo Doubs in 2024 that caused a suspension for a game. We already saw Jaden Reed's agent awkwardly come out and say that the Packers and he have had a conversation, and Jaden Reed is still expected to be a focal point of this offense. Like, I'm sure that these wide receivers are a little bit nervous about not only the wide receiver room, which has Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson eventually, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden, Savion Williams. If we want to get to the Mecole Hardmans as well, Bo Melton, Malik Heath, etc., there are a lot of mouths to feed just within that wide receiver room. That doesn't even include Tucker Kraft, who everyone in that organization is talking about how he needs to be a larger focal point within the offense and getting more targets his way. Everyone's expecting Luke Musgrave to have a bigger influence on this team than he did a season ago. Nobody's expecting Josh Jacobs to take a step back in what his productivity is. In fact, I think with this new offensive line, people are hoping he can even have more productivity in this offense. Marshawn Lloyd is coming back and is playing, and everyone's expecting him to have a bigger influence on this offense. There are so many playmakers on this team that you're going to want to get the ball to. And in this wide receiver room, I could see some players getting upset pretty quick that the ball is maybe not going their way. And Mecole Hardman has had to navigate this his entire career in Kansas City, them consistently bringing in new receivers, him going to New York and basically getting completely forgotten. He has had to battle this his entire career, and I think having that veteran voice in the locker room can be very important for this young Packers team. So I think he brings that, but there's a lot of other things that he brings. I went through, he only had 115 snaps on offense this past year for KC. I went through and I graded every one of those plays and also kind of labeled my top takeaways from Mecole Hardman. And the grade was good. He ended up with me with a plus 0.45 grade, which in limited snaps is a very solid grade. PFF gave him a 72.8 grade. Their average is 60, so above average grade. In fact, this is in a sort of ironic, funny way. Jaden Reed would have been the highest graded wide receiver on the Packers roster. Mecole Hardman would have been the highest graded player on the Packers receiver room this past year with a 72.8 grade. So he graded well when given the opportunity. I think that was kind of one of the takeaways is he didn't get a ton of opportunity at wide receiver for KC. And I felt like there was a lot more meat on that bone where they could have utilized him more. There was actually some opportunities on tape where he was open downfield and Mahomes just was not looking his way. He wasn't necessarily one of the primary reads on the play. So I felt like there was opportunity out there for him to be more of a playmaker. Just didn't really get that opportunity in KC, which is a little bit interesting because they kind of needed some of that explosive playmaking down the field. It was something they struggled with a little bit. We're not used to talking about KC in that way, but it was legitimately true. But what I kind of learned watching every single one of those snaps on tape this past year is that he does have a lot of gadget ability. They utilized him on end arounds, reverses, jet sweeps. They put him in the backfield from time to time. They did use him in unique ways, and he was a real true gadget player that if you get the ball in his hands, he had a really nice jet sweep for a touchdown this past year. He can be utilized in that way. Think of Tyler Ervin when the Packers brought in Tyler Ervin as a player who could be their primary punt returner plus gadget player. Ervin was listed as a running back, but spent more time split out wide doing some of those gadget plays in his time in Green Bay. I think Mecole Hardman is a more souped up version of that, where he can give you a punt returner, but even better gadget ability plus some real true receiver ability on the outside. As mentioned, didn't get much opportunity as a true wide receiver, but I think he can absolutely do that. They used him as a decoy a lot. It was that whether it was him in motion trying to get the attention of opposing defenses because you had to honor it, because if he got the ball in a jet sweep, he had the ability to take it the distance. So they used him as a decoy on that a lot. They also used him as a decoy deep down the field. The speed is legit, 4.2 40 speed. Like, it shows up on tape. And again, we saw it at minicamp a couple weeks ago. He did struggle a little bit with press coverage. If you can get into his body a little bit, it's tougher for him to get that speed going and just kind of slows him down at the line of scrimmage. They even used him a little bit in a wildcat formation. So that could be something that, again, if Green Bay wanted to, they could dabble with a little bit. They put him in the backfield as a running back. As mentioned, the jet sweeps, the reverses, the end arounds are very effective. What you don't want to use him as a run blocker, that does not go well. He is not the strongest, toughest run blocker on the outside. So better to just have him run a 9 route down the field and hope that the corner goes with you rather than probably have him trying to block that cornerback. I will also say that the Chiefs offense was a little bit weird this past year. And I do think it actually was a little bit detrimental to Mecole Hardman again and not getting some of those opportunities. Again, we're usually used to having KC have this high-powered, explosive offense, and just really wasn't that way. I think actually Hardman can have a little bit more opportunity in Green Bay's offense. And just last but not least, there were, again, opportunities to get him a little bit more involved, and KC just, for whatever reason, didn't utilize him that way. Not sure why, but I do think just looking back at what he was able to provide and what he did out on tape, I think Green Bay has a player that they can use in a more effective way than the ways that KC and New York did over these past couple seasons. Punt return for him is going to be huge. In order to make this team, he probably needs to show that he's the primary punt returner, a la Desmond Howard back in the day, and that's really his ticket onto the roster. He's going to have to battle with guys like Bo Melton, who now is adding some versatility to his resume by playing some defensive back as well, and Malik Heath, who's a really good blocker on the outside and is just a good, solid overall wide receiver. Those 3 wide receivers, there's a really good chance that they might only keep one of those players. And if so, his punt return ability would be what could potentially set him apart and be the reason that they maybe want to keep him as that number 6 wide receiver and maybe even keep him as a 7th once Christian Watson comes back. I do think that veteran locker room ability is also something that is very important for him and could give him a leg up over somebody like a Bo Melton or a Malik Heath as well. We got a lot more to get to in today's Pack a Day radio show. Dan Kotnik just entered the chat, so we're going to talk with him as soon as we get back. If you missed anything on any of your favorite shows all week long, Leadoff Show, Wisconsin Sports Daily, Mason Crosby Show are right here on the Pack a Day radio show. Check us out for free on the Odyssey app or go to thefanmilwaukee.com and listen for free. It is right now 73 and partly cloudy in Milwaukee, high of 82 today, low of 61. This is the Pack a Day radio show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We'll be right back right after this. We are back here on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder, we've got the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch and Ellis coming up 9 to 11 here today on The Fan. Also, Wade versus Diener is back for year 3. Join NBA stars Dwayne Wade and Travis Diener on June 27th for the Champions for Literacy celebration as they make an impact in Milwaukee and at Marquette. Tickets on sale, wadevsdiener.givesmart.com. Joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, is the one and only Dan Kotnik. You can find him on social media, specifically on Blue Sky, at Dano the Mano. Dan, it is wonderful to be back chatting with you. How are you doing, my friend?
It is great to be back, Andy. Good to see you, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And yes, it has been, about a month since I think we've talked last. And last time we had some fun, did some a little more game show type of activity. What I want to do today, though, is I haven't had the opportunity to go through and look at this NFC post transactions, draft, trades, free agency, etc., and kind of just look at where these teams rank, kind of power rank these 16 teams in the NFC. And I thought, you and I today, what better way to kind of finish up a Friday than power ranking the teams in the NFC? So let me ask you, do you want to start from the top, or do you want to start from the bottom? Go from 16 to 1, 1 to 16. What's the easiest way to do this?
At the risk of associating myself with Drake, let's start from the bottom, and we'll work our way up. Yeah.
All right, deal. All right, so number 16, I think this is an interesting conversation in and of itself. What are some teams that you're potentially thinking of here as the worst team in the NFC?
Well, spiritually, the Chicago Bears are always the worst team in the NFC. On the field, for me, it's a 2-team race between the New Orleans Saints and New York Giants. And
okay.
I saw the Saints when they came to Lambeau last year, and nothing impressed me this offseason to change my mind about a difference between that team that came to Lambeau and what's going to come into week 1 this year. In fact, they probably got worse. So it's I have a hard time not putting the Saints at 16. It was the worst, maybe the worst team in the entire NFL.
I'm with you. I have the Saints at 16 as well. And I think whether it's Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, there's at least a little bit of upside in both of those players, but I'm not expecting much from either this upcoming season. The roster's obliterated. They put together this team in a very weird way. A lot of their star players are just getting old. It's just really difficult to see. I think they've done enough to keep it where it's not like a 2 or 3 win team, and almost like a bad way. I think they've almost got the roster to a point where it's going to get 6 or 7 wins, probably to their detriment. But it's a really bad team, and I think it could bottom out in a real significant way. So I'm with you. I think 16 is there as well. I'm assuming then New York is number 15 on your list.
Yeah, I have New York at 15. They're just, it's just it's one step above the Saints. If the Saints are just a tent in the middle of the woods, the Giants are a rundown studio apartment with a busted up futon kind of thing. I honestly forgot that Abdul Carter was there, which made me almost start to rethink, do they get a bump of 1 spot higher? But it's
yep.
Russell Wilson is just here to be a meat shield for Jackson Dart. They're hoping he lasts for 17 games so they can get Jackson Dart a year of, experience in training camps and, being there for a year so that he can take over next year and not have to go and play as a rookie. And that is a terrible way to set up a franchise going into a season. And so I don't care if you have Reggie White playing, Abdul Carter isn't lifting you up anywhere past this. You have to be 15.
The quarterback room of Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart, and Tommy DeVito is one of the greatest things that's ever been assembled in the history of the NFL. There's no question about it. You could do Hard Knocks just on that quarterback room. Yeah. You could just have it be with those 4 guys the entire time, and it would be must watch. There's a couple things. I wanted to put this Giants team a little bit higher because I love Malik Neighbors as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think the first thing you need to do if you're a bad team is build a superpower at something. And to me, them getting Brian Burns and Abdul Carter on the edge with Dexter Lawrence, and then they also go in the 3rd round to get Darius Alexander on the interior as well. that has the ability to be a extremely fearsome pass rush up front, which when Green Bay plays that team, like even with their good offensive line, I'll be afraid of that 4-man rush a little bit. So I think they've done some good things with it. And I think, again, back-to-back Abdul Carter and Malik Neighbors in the first round is potentially pretty special on both sides of the ball. But there's just nobody else I can put below the Giants at this point. So I'm with you. I'm going with the Giants at 15 as well. Then I think we start getting into some much more interesting conversation. So I'll let you take it from there. Who do you have at 14?
At 14, I'm putting the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
I think it's just I want to believe in the Panthers so bad. I've wanted to believe in the Panthers for years because I actually really like Bryce Young as a quarterback, and I wanted to see him, step up and become the quarterback that we really wanted to see. We just haven't seen it yet. And I think this has to be the year to do it. He's gotten now 2 first-round wide receivers the last 2 drafts. They went and got Tate McMillan this year. They got Xavier Leggett last year. You are setting Bryce Young up for the best possible scenario you can, even after doing everything you had to give away to go get Bryce Young. They're doing everything they can to set him up. This has to be the year to do it for Bryce Young.
No, I'm right there with you. I think they're 13 as well. I thought they did a pretty good job of navigating the season this past year and Bryce Young taking a step in the right direction. But I'm with you. I don't think there's anyone else at this point in the conversation other than Carolina at 14. All right, who you got at 13? Again, it starts to thicken up a little bit here.
Yeah, 13. It's the reason I was gonna say why I think you're right with the Saints are probably gonna get 6-7 wins. It's because they play in a terrible division.
South,
I have the Falcons. I have the Falcons right above them. Nothing wowed me this offseason. They signed Kevin King. I'll just leave it at that. One of their big offseason signings was bringing in Kevin King. And getting him another year of veteran experience and adding to his pension plan. That's what the Falcons did in the offseason, which is interesting. I like Michael Penix. I actually like him more than Bryce Young. I think they've got stuff there. Carolina seems like they have a plan in place that they're trying to get it to go, and Bryce Young can't get it to go. Michael Penix, it's almost the opposite. Michael Penix is maybe a better quarterback. They just can't find stuff to put around him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I think them trading their 2026 first-round pick away already on a defensive to move up to get a defensive end was very foolhardy because, again, this could be a bottom 5-10 team in the NFL this upcoming season. That pick could be extremely valuable to where they traded it. So I thought that was a really, really boneheaded move on their part, but we'll see if their pass rush is improved and if they can take a step in 2025 here. But I do it's intriguing and interesting that our bottom 4 teams in the NFC, we already have 3 teams in the NFC South. Who do you got at number 12?
I put the Arizona Cardinals at number 12 because, again, a lot of my power rankings, it almost becomes like quarterback rankings. Kyler Murray, it was supposed to be last year was the Kyler Murray show. Was anybody really impressed with Kyler Murray? You got one of the best wide receiver prospects in Marvin Harrison Jr. Did he become who we kind of thought yet? You need him to be arguably a top 5, maybe top 3 wide receiver in this league if you're going to compete with the roster that they've kind of put together around him. And I just don't know if that developmental track is what you're going to expect out of a young wide receiver, and is that timetable on track with where Kyler Murray is? And is Kyler Murray really, is he committed to competing for that long?
I think it's an interesting conversation as well. This is exactly what we're in lockstep so far, Dan, with our first 5 teams here. We're being joined by Dan Kotnik. You can follow him on social media at Dano the Mano on Blue Sky. Of course, find him on the Pack a Day podcast as well. He's being joined here on the Gruber Law hotline, guest hotline, I should say. Who do we got at number 11?
How about them Cowboys at number 11? I am putting the Dallas Cowboys here. Yeah. I mean, I think there's arguably a lot of people that maybe say like, why so low? But this isn't the team of 5-6 years ago. You know, this isn't those offensive lines anymore. Zach Martin's gone. DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. So many of those players from those really great Dallas Cowboys teams when Dak Prescott was in his first couple years, they're gone. They replaced them with a lot of promising young players. I love the young offensive lineman that they got, and they went and got Ezraku. I like the draft that they have, but like, how much is that going to move the needle in a very tough NFC East? And then you bring in George Pickens. How is that gonna clash with CeeDee Lamb? That just screams like, in a big market like Dallas, just screams like media circus, and that never works out well.
Who do we got at number 10?
Give me the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
I think they're doing a really good job of trying to put it together. I think it's just more that's so many new pieces, and you traded away a huge piece in DK Metcalf, and now you're asking Sam Darnold to come in here and do this with a lot of new guys. Cooper Kupp is coming in, and Sam Darnold now has to do this without a perfect situation like he had in Minnesota, basically. Can he replicate that in Seattle? And I'm just not sure if he can do it.
Yeah, they're trying to do sort of that relaunch without doing a rebuild and trading away their quarterback, bringing in Darnold, trading away Metcalf, getting younger at wide receiver. They're in an interesting no man's land, and I think this feels about right for them. All right, number 9.
Number 9, I don't know if this may be a surprise or not. I've got the 49ers at number 9. I'm not really sold on. I think they're going to be really down this year. I think getting rid of Debo was a big mistake. They lost a lot of defensive snaps. I know people will still like point to Bosa being there and Fred Warner. Like, I'm still not. I've never been fully bought in on Brock Purdy. I still think when the chips are down, if you have to rely on Brock Purdy to be the guy, and the more you start to take away pieces like Debo, he's going to have to be the guy in more situations. I don't see how he keeps up. I think they're in for a down year.
They're getting old, and they've drafted very poorly, and that is a bad recipe for success. And I'm with you. I think they're going to be out of the playoffs for the second consecutive season, and I think Kyle Shanahan is going to be on the hot seat very quickly here in San Fran. We'll see. And John Lynch as well, who again is not drafted the best, and really, if it had not been for Brock Purdy, it's a really ugly scenario there. So yes, I'm with you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was agreeing. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. All right, number 8. We got we got one more outside of the playoffs, and then our top 7 playoff teams.
First one outside the playoffs. It's my first NFC North team. I'm putting the Minnesota Vikings.
Ooh, all right, spicy.
Yeah, a lot of shuffle on the offensive line, and you have to see, is JJ McCarthy for real? Because Sam Darnold is gone. They pretty much pushed JJ McCarthy out of the nest and say, "Fly, little baby bird," and so. He's now the youngest by terms of experience quarterback in the NFC North. It's a tough division, and I'm still not sure what that defense is gonna. Can that defense keep it up in Minnesota? So I will put Minnesota there.
I think it's an interesting conversation. I think them and the Bears kind of for that final playoff spot, that next spot in the NFC North is going to be very interesting as well. I'm assuming the Bears are coming up here at 7, or do we have one other team in between them maybe?
Yes, it is the Bears at number 7.
Okay.
Yeah. As much as it pains me to say, like, they are doing so much right. They made a lot of really great upgrades on the offensive line.
The worst.
Scares the hell out of me. Ben Johnson, I'm here in Detroit. He was a miracle worker here. I think he's going to do a lot of really good things with Caleb Williams. They still have the weapons in Dunze. I think they're going to be scary. And 7 might even be too low. We really might be underselling the Chicago Bears this year.
Here's my hope. I agree with a lot of things that you said, and I still have faith that they'll Bears it up in some way, shape, or
Yes.
form because they have a long track record in Bearsing things up. So that's my hope. I do think they've been very smart this offseason, which usually does not go hand in hand with the Chicago Bears. But again, I still have faith that their incompetence in some way, shape, or form can screw this up in some way. So, all right, number 6, we kind of got to finish up our top 6 playoff teams here. Who do you have at number 6?
I got the Los Angeles Rams. Matt Stafford.
okay.
Matt Stafford's still a pretty darn good quarterback, and how much more can Devontae Adams bring to the table? I'm excited to see what he can do.
Number 5.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm a huge fan of Baker Mayfield. As a young quarterback, I think he's going to be one of the future all-stars of this league, and Hassan Reddick and Emeka Ibuka make them extremely competitive.
We're being again joined by Dan Kotnik here on the guest hotline powered by Gruber Law. You can find him on social media at Dano the Mano on Blue Sky. And of course, on the Pack a Day podcast, we're ranking the 16 teams in the NFC North. So far, we've got the Saints, Giants, Panthers, Falcons, Cardinals, Cowboys, Seahawks, 49ers, Vikings, Bears, Rams, and Bucks from 16 to 5. All right, let's get to our top 4. Dan, who do you have at number 4?
The top 4, the hometown team for me here, it's the Detroit Lions. I think that they are going to lose a step without the coordinators in town. And I think really not being talked enough about nationally or anywhere else, Frank Ragnow, the center, retiring so late in the offseason like that's huge. Being here in Detroit, you would have thought that it was the Pope dying. When Frank Ragnow retired when he did, it was wall-to-wall coverage for 2 days here. That's going to hurt them. And I think Jared Goff is losing a step without those coordinators.
I'm very interested to see without Ragnow, when there's no quarterback that's kryptonite, is more immediate pressure on the inside than Jared Goff. If he's clean, he's Superman. If you have pressure on him immediately, it is, like I said, a massive kryptonite for him. So I'm very interested to see what that looks like. All right, number 3.
Number 3 is where I put the Packers. I put the Packers at number 3. I think they're basically a younger version of the Lions at this point. A little bit of shuffling on the offensive line. I think they've got better. I think maybe not better overall weapons, but younger offensive weapons, a younger offensive core, younger quarterback. If they can figure out a pass rush, they're basically a young Detroit Lions, and that's really scary.
I'm hoping that you're right, except I hope they have a little bit more postseason success than those Detroit Lions have had over the last couple seasons. But I do think it's a very talented team, and obviously extremely excited to see what they can do this upcoming season. All right, we've got 2 NFC East teams left. Who's your number 2?
This might be, feel like it's Mail in, but I have to put the Commanders at number 2, just because I still really love everything that they've done. I think they're going to be competing for the top spot in the NFC. Jaden Daniels proved he was a baller. He is here to stay. He's going to be immediately challenging the Packers in week number 2 at Lambeau. And they went out and made upgrades exactly where you need to go with a young a young quarterback on the offensive line. Laramie Tunsil is going to be huge for them. Deebo Samuel coming. This is exactly what you want to do for the Commanders. But until someone can knock off the Eagles, I just don't know how you can ever say they're not the top team in the NFC right now.
I'm right there with you. I think the Eagles have to be one. I think the Commanders are still very intriguing, and I think they've added some key pieces. I do think there's the potential for them to fall off a little bit. I thought they had some close wins this past season, and I could see them kind of taking that Packers step back that we saw this past year where they had that unbelievable run, and then, again, it wasn't quite the same in year 2, but I still think they're a very talented team and certainly are going to be in that conversation. So here is Dan Kotnik's top 16 teams in the NFC. Number 1, Philadelphia Eagles, followed by the Washington Commanders, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. Number 5, the Tampa Bay Bucks, then the LA Rams, Chicago Bears, and Minnesota Vikings. Number 9, San Francisco 49ers, followed by the Seahawks, Cowboys, and Cardinals. And wrapping it up at 13 is the Atlanta Falcons, finishing up with the Panthers, Giants, and Saints. Dan, I cannot thank you enough. These are always fun to do. It's always great chatting with you. Where can we find all of your incredible work?
Yeah, obviously on Mondays at the Pack a Day podcast with Monty Moore and Camille Davis. We have an awesome time over there. We always do a lot of fun stuff, as you know, Andy. And then if you want to find me just out on the socials, like you've been saying, mostly over on Blue Sky at Dan O'Domano.
All right. A huge thank you to Dan Kotnik for joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Dan, we will do this again very, very soon. You enjoy your off season, and enjoy. Are you still in Detroit proper, or where are you at right now?
Just north of the Detroit. I moved. I did the suburb. I'm the suburb dad now.
All right. Well, make sure that you're still repping the Packers strong and making the Lions fans know that the Packers are number 3 in the power rankings and the Lions are number 4. We'll talk to you again soon, Dan. You enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.
You too, Andy.
I appreciate you. That is, again, Dan Kotnik. Follow him on social media at Dan O'Domano. It's the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. We got a lot more coming up right after this. Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. A huge thank you to Dan Kotnik for joining us this past segment and putting our power rankings for the NFC together. Also a reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. We're going to talk to Mitch and Mason here momentarily. Also, make sure to come say hi to Steve Sparky Pfeiffer this afternoon as he broadcasts live from Summerfest at the Hole-in-One contest starting at 2 p.m. with the Wisconsin Sports Daily served up by Wendy's right here on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan. Of course, Tommy, we've got Brewers baseball today, which of course means we have a leadoff show. How are you feeling about that today?
Yeah, leadoff show today, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock first pitch, going up against Colorado. We had talked about these two series between Pittsburgh and Colorado earlier when they were going up against Pittsburgh to start things off last week. Had to go 5-1 through this two series stretch, I thought. So whether you were going to lose to Paul Skeens or somewhere else in that Pirates series as the Milwaukee Brewers did, 5-1 seemed like you needed to be there to keep pace in the NL Central. Got to handle business tonight. Jose Quintana going up against To Be Determined. You ever heard of his stats, Andy?
Oh, he's incredible. He pitches a lot, though.
He is on every single team, it feels like. To Be Determined, assuming it'll be an opener for Colorado in some capacity. But Jose Quintana gets the bump today for the Crew. 6 o'clock leadoff show if you want to hear everything you need to before first pitch.
Rockies have been a little bit better lately. They are still 4-6 in their last 10 and have lost 3 in a row. And like you said, this is a huge opportunity. The Brewers have been playing great. They're 9 games above 500. They're 7-3 in their last 10. The last thing that you want is like a 1-2 series against Colorado to kind of stall that momentum. So hopefully they can keep everything rolling, pick up 3 wins, get a sweep, and really be. I mean, if they can do that, man, all of a sudden you're 12 games above 500. You're going to be in a great spot here coming up as we get closer and closer to the All-Star break. So again, a huge opportunity for Milwaukee.
Yeah, absolutely. You need. I'm going to ask you, Andy, if there's an over/under set at 18 runs in this series, 6 runs a game. Are you taking the over or the under for the Milwaukee Brewers on the offensive side?
I'm going to take the under, but I still think Milwaukee goes at least 2-1, possibly 3-0. I think the offense will slow down a little bit. I don't think they're going to stay quite as hot. And I think, I think, I'm going to go with under, but I still think they have a great chance of picking up a few wins. And I think the pitching will be great against Colorado.
Yeah, needs to be for sure.
Very much so. All right, I've got a topic near and dear to my heart, Tommy, that I want to talk about. It's not Packers related, but as I get out of here and hand the reins to you over the course of the next week plus here on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show, I have one topic I want to get to. So let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
So, Tommy, have you seen that the NCAA tournament wants to expand and potentially go up to as many as 78 teams in the NCAA tournament? Your opening thoughts on that?
Dumb, lame, stupid, more money. Those are the initial thoughts right there.
I am 1,000,000% with you, but what if I told you I have a solution to all of life's problems that can get you more entertaining college basketball, get you more teams, and make it so that it's still a unbelievably enjoyable experience for the NCAA tournament? Would you be interested in said proposal?
I'm listening.
Right. How many conferences are there in college basketball?
More every year, it feels
32.
Like. Okay.
A beautiful 32.
Yeah.
A perfect 32. All right, so here's my proposal, Tommy. If you win your conference tournament now, you get an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament, right?
Correct.
We are not changing that. Because I think the really cool aspect of the NCAA tournament is A, you have Cinderellas and underdogs, and B, once you get into your conference tournament, if you go undefeated from that conference tournament through the NCAA tournament, you're the NCAA champion. Everyone has the opportunity. You are starting with your conference tournament, just keep winning, and you win a national champion. Like, that's the kind of cool aspect of it. We're not changing that. The 32 teams that win their conference tournaments, they get in the 64 team. We're going back to 64. The 64 team tournament, that's going to make up half the teams of the tournament. What we're going to do is we're going to take the next 64 the 64 best teams, all right? And we're going to take, if you won your conference, all right, won your conference but did not win your tournament, you get an automatic bid into the play-in bracket here. All right, so let's say there's 12 teams that won their conference but didn't win their tournament. Those 12 teams are in no matter what. The next 52 best teams, use the Ken Pom rankings, put together a new rankings, do whatever you need to do, but we're going to have a ranking. If you were the 65th team, or in this case, I guess the 53rd team, don't whine about it. You were the 53rd team. You don't get to complain. So whatever those rankings are, we're going to take the 12 teams that were automatic qualifiers because they won their conference in the regular season, and the next 52 best teams, we're going to rank them 1 to 64. The 64 team plays at the 1, the 63 at the 2, the 60, whatever. You get 1 week of play-in games. And then you get those additional 32 teams that are play-in winners, plus the 32 conference tournament winners. That's your 64 team field. The other 32 losers make up the NIT bracket. Those are your NIT teams in a perfect 32 team bracket. Your 32 winners go with the 32 conference tournament winners. And then that's when you get your bracket. You have a perfect 64 bracket. You start the NCAA season 1 week earlier so that you have that 1 week in between the conference tournaments, your play-in games, and then you actually set the tournament field of 64 just like we have for years. You get your 1s and your 16s. You still have plenty of Cinderellas. We get to make a perfect 64-man bracket or 64-team bracket. We don't have to mess with any of that. We don't have to have these 78 teams or that these play-in games are actually tournament games when they're not. I think it's beautiful. I think it's perfect, and I will not hear otherwise. Tell me why I'm stupid.
Because I didn't understand it after the third sentence there, Andy, probably.
Oh, my goodness,
yes,
Tommy.
I know. I understand that it's going to make more money with more teams in there, and that's the motive right now. And I also understand that the Cinderella team is dead, and it gives more opportunity, maybe, if you add more teams in there. But I am of the belief that even the first 4 in is stupid, and I don't want to watch it. Even though UCLA, I believe, made the Final Four out of it 2 or 3 seasons ago, being the 11th seed. It does happen. But give me 64 teams, a nice even number. I don't want to watch any more college basketball between Colgate and What's the Matter You. I have no interest in that. 64 teams, keep it where it is.
I'm with the 64 as well. Again, I think there's a creative way to get there by making one round of play-in games right before the NCAA tournament. Again, using the teams that have either won their regular season or, again, the next best teams, playing a home game for the team that's in the better scenario. And, again, basically taking those 32 teams, one on each, putting the winners into the NCAA tournament, the losers into the NIT, and everything just fits so perfectly together. But it's an interesting conversation. They're going to probably mess it up in some way, shape, or form because that's what college sports does. The NCAA tournament feels like the one pure thing we have left in college sports. So, of course, we need to find a way to ruin it. All right, we are going to get to Mason Crosby, Mitch Thunder Nellis here in just a moment. Do not go anywhere.